It's the Unhappy Hour.
Broadcasting to you live from the Milky Way galaxy, the solar system, planet Earth, North America, the United States of America, Kentucky, Louisville to be specific. My name is Brian Engelman, and this is the Unhappy Hour sports show here on the TNAM network, because the news always matters. My name is Brian Engelman, and I'm joined with my special guest, Brandon Odell, today. Brandon and I have done many radio shows, doing Strictly Browns, covering sports issues related to Cleveland teams mainly. Usually comes back to the Browns. And I have attended countless games with Brandon as well. So first off, this is called the Unhappy Hour. I want to introduce you to this beverage. This is called Jameson Cold Brew. No, they are not a sponsor, but I'm just going to go ahead and put a little into my cup here. It's a Saturday. It's a quarantine Saturday. It's kind of tough to find Jameson Cold Brew. I recommend it. It's good to sip on. Cheers, everybody. My question is, what are you sipping on today? Tell me in the comments. You can see this is a 1970s or 1960s Cleveland Browns cup. It's a tumbler with the old logo. I've been going through things looking at old logos because the Browns have unveiled a new uniform. So we're going to talk about the Browns uniform, and we're going to talk about the upcoming draft with you in just a moment. We'll send it over to you, Brandon. I want to ask, what are you sipping on this wonderful Saturday afternoon, sir?
It was a delicious cup of water from the refrigerator. But in terms of a new beverage that I discovered last night that I enjoyed quite a bit, I had just purchased a new 6-pack of Great Lakes. They have a new hazy IPA. Has a flamingo on the front, which pays homage to my hometown of Parma, and quite tasty. Definitely has a little bit of the hoppy side of things that you expect from an IPA, but doesn't quite go overboard, which turns me off sometimes to some IPAs. Is just the overwhelming bitterness. So has still has a nice drinkability to it. Not doesn't just try to overwhelm you with the bitterness flavor.
Well, that's a perfect opportunity to give me a nice alley-oop of a segue, because speaking of bitterness, Cleveland Browns franchise and fan base has been suffering for a very long time, dude. And part of the Jimmy Haslam era has been redesigning what the team looks like and feels like. And they did it again with a new release of jerseys. They came out with 4 of them, and I've seen. I'm thinking the coverage has been generally positive as a reaction, with some backlash saying, "Hey, where are the orange pants?" But let's break down what the Haslams did here, because they've done a redesign before. I'm wearing an old shirt here. I have also. Oh, I forgot to bring my jersey in. My custom jersey that was so poorly made, all the letters and the custom name across the back had fallen off. But what's your take on the jerseys that the Browns have just released?
I love the fact that they have gone back to the simplistic, clean look. I purchased, which certainly we all know what's going on in the world right now. Some people might not know that the Dee and Jimmy Haslam Foundation is donating 100% of the proceeds from the New Jersey sales. Not the sales of the state of New Jersey, but the sales of the jerseys that are new to their coronavirus relief fund that is going to help pay for meals for kids that are out of school, people that are unemployed right now, as well as going to a first responders relief fund to help out some people who are really having to put forth a lot of extra effort to try to keep people safe right now. So anyway, with that said, I thought it was a pretty good opportunity for me to be able to purchase a jersey that is new for me, and I love the look. I like. I've always been pretty partial to the classic whites. One thing that I didn't necessarily want to see them do it for every single home game, but I kind of dug the look of the Mike Holmgren era, where they wore the white on whites for the home games, and so I do like the look of the whites. I love the idea of the brown jerseys with the white pants as the home look as well, and I think that's going to be what their main home look is supposed to be. And then I guess what you would call their color rush jerseys, I think are pretty sharp. Obviously, they're not much different than what the color rush jerseys have been the last couple years, which obviously those are jerseys that are very near and dear to the hearts of Browns fans, because they're in last couple years they're associated with some of our more fun moments, two of which I was there for. The Thursday night first appearance of Johnny Manziel, where they were wearing the color rush, and or Johnny Manziel. We'll try that again. Baker Mayfield coming
reset,
coming in and beating the Jets in the color rush jersey on that Thursday night for their first win in, what was it, 400 days. And then
that was the Bud Light. They unlocked the coolers.
The beer fridge game, yes. And I was there for that game. And then they also wore the color rushes for the Steelers game on Thursday night, which will be infamous in Browns lore, obviously, as the helmet swinging game with Myles Garrett. But I digress. So they've even simplified the look from the color rush jerseys. They've taken the stripes off. They're just basically like a pure brown on brown. And kind of the one thing that they did keep from the most recent uniform redesign is they kept the little slight different color of orange in the helmets from what the old orange helmets of, like, say, 6 years and before were. And they're also keeping the brown face masks as well, rather than the white or gray face masks. So those are the helmets are staying the same from the last 5 years, which I like. So overall, I think that they're pretty cool. I got myself a white Jarvis Landry. There's certain, a lot of people are going out and buying a Beckham jersey. My feeling with Beckham is that first of all, my last name is Odell, so my dad is always like, well, you could put Odell on the back, and it could be both ways. And I said, it would just be way too confusing for people.
Do it.
But I think Beckham ultimately is going to end up, I think he'll definitely be here for this coming season, and then he'll probably go off somewhere else, just because I think that's going to be kind of who Beckham is. I think he's going to play a few years in a place, and then people he wears out his welcome a little bit. And I don't necessarily know 10 years from now if people are going to look very fondly back. I hope that they do, but if they're going to look very fondly back on Odell Beckham as a Cleveland Brown, whereas I think that Jarvis Landry, I think, is a player, from what we've seen of him the last couple of years in a Browns uniform, I think he is a player who truly embodies the spirit of what it means to be a Cleveland Brown. Just hard-nosed, not necessarily the most physically gifted, but gives maximum effort. And I think he's a guy, you could wear his jersey 15 years from now, and you're still going to get respect from fellow Browns fans because of the type of player that Jarvis Landry has been and will continue to be for the Cleveland Browns.
That's well said. I get your point. I finally broke down and got a Baker jersey, and who knows? Who knows what players are going to be around for the long term? Rarely do you get a Tom Brady for 18 years or 20 years on the same franchise. I just pulled out my brown Cleveland Browns custom jersey. All the letters are just peeling off of this. It was so poorly made. It'd been only washed a couple of times. Brand new. Just a trash jersey. I like it. In fact, I kind of want to take the nameplate off and put it back on, and then run it through the dryer a few more loads so that all of the lettering comes off. and just keep it as a timepiece. I'll hang this up probably because I'm not going to wear it necessarily. But yeah, I mean, you mentioned the Beckham point, well taken, because there are rumors about him being traded to Minnesota. We can talk about that in a second if you want. But when you talked about the white on white jerseys, I'm looking at the screen here. And, it's got the white on white on the left. I think it's Nick Chubb modeling this. I'm not certain. But I look at the white on white and I see Reggie Langhorne. I see Webster Slaughter. I see Ozzie Newsome. I see Frank Minifield and Hanford Dixon and Kevin Mack and Ernest Biner. And, when I see
Bernie
white on white.
You didn't mention Burn.
Who's that? New team. Who dis? Of course, Bernie Kosar. I was thinking more Vinny Testaverde, but I digress. No, but I do look at that as a recent classic jersey going back to the last time we were decent. It's been a long time since we were decent. I guess I've seen Tim Couch in that jersey, but, that team couldn't even win a playoff game. So, I'm okay with the jerseys. I would like to see... I like the color rush with orange. I know it's bizarre. I know it's aggressive, but that's what color rush is supposed to be. Brown on brown is okay with orange lettering. It's okay. I like the stripes on the socks. Those are great. It's kind of like the ode to Jim Thome, with the socks coming up to the knees. It's all right, man. But I'll root for them if they're wearing pink polka dots. If they're wearing plaid, I don't care what they're wearing as long as they're winning. So, Jimmy and Dee Haslam have the core of a team put together, and we have the number 10 pick in this year's draft. We're not top 5 for the first time in a while. At number 10, Brandon, what do you think the Browns are going to do, will do, should do at number 10? Because those are different questions.
Okay. So everything that I am basing this off of, you can look at 1,000 different mock drafts right now, and 995 of them are having us take a left tackle. To pair with Jack Conklin on the right side, who we picked up in free agency. And then you say that you're set with your bookends for the next 5 years at least. With that said, there is basically anyone you talk to from a scouting side of things gives you 4 names. They give you Mekhi Becton is probably your main guy that I'm pretty intrigued by, and that's one that you should have a little info about, because isn't he from Louisville?
Yeah, and I don't know if you caught the latest news with this guy. His stock has just plummeted. He tested positive.
For PEDs, I saw something said that his test was flagged. Is it a PED thing, or is it a weed thing, which I think is ridiculous?
Let me pull up an article really quick to give you a story on it. But while I check that, you were saying.
So Mekhi Becton, they're saying that this guy is just a total beast. He's 346 pounds, but moves like a 240-pound linebacker. And so I think that's one that's pretty intriguing. Andrew Thomas kind of goes along as being one of the safer picks. He's a multi-year starter at left tackle for the University of Georgia, and is what you would call maybe the high floor, low ceiling kind of guy. So he's your safest pick. Tristan Wirfs is the athletic freak from the University of Iowa. Something that I really like about him is the fact that he actually is a multi-sport standout in high school, was a state champion wrestler in high school, and as a former wrestler myself and as a former wrestling coach, I really appreciate the way that a wrestler is taught how to use leverage and to use his body weight to his advantage versus an opponent. And I think that really ties in well with offensive and defensive linemen.
And let me agree with that real quick in the regard that, it's like kinesiology. It's the study of human movement and how the body moves and torques and twists and moves. Wrestlers have a unique ability, almost like kung fu fighters. maybe mixed martial arts in general. You're using the aggression and the movements of your opponent against your opponent. It's a dance. It's a ballet. Yes, it's strong. It's pure brute force. But it's also a mental game of how do you keep them off balance? Because if you can get somebody off balance, I used to do this as a defensive end. We had the X's that took us out and then the darts that took us in. These were stunts. So as a defensive end, I'd either go out or I'd go in. I could get the offensive tackle tricked. I would go out a couple of times on the left shoulder, and they would get so used to that move that I would hit them with the left shoulder, and I'd hook them with my elbow and do a quick spin. And a lot of this is about the study of human movement, using other people's aggression against them, and wrestlers have a unique ability to manage their bodies in a way that works well in trench warfare. So that's a great point that you bring up. That's a great point.
So he's another one, and then the fourth guy is Jedrick Wills. Wills or Willis? Jedrick Wills, I believe his name is, from Alabama. And the knock on him, some people say that, first of all, he might be the best of the four, but the knock on him is that he has only played right tackle. But a partial reason for that is that he was protecting Tua Tagovailoa, who is a left-handed quarterback. So in that way, he was still protecting the quarterback's blind side. However, basically when you're trying to convert from right tackle to left tackle, you're learning how to eat your food. Hold your fork with your left hand instead of your right, and try eating that way for a week. And that's the idea of having to learn muscle memory in a different way, I think is probably the thing that would be most difficult for Jedrick Wills from Alabama. So he might be projected better as a right tackle. There's a lot of talk that Tristan Wirfs might be projected better as a guard. And then that comes back to Mekhi Becton and Andrew Thomas. Andrew Thomas being the high floor, low ceiling kind of a guy, at least in projections, and Mekhi Becton being the high ceiling kind of guy. But as you are saying, he might be high in other ways as well. Is that the article that you're seeing here?
I was gonna get drafted number 10, but I got high. Okay,
hey,
so this is
remember the whole Laramie Tunsil stuff from a few years ago. He ended up still doing pretty well for himself.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, of course. Well, to wrap around that story, SportsIllustrated.com report, projected first-round NFL draft pick Mekhi Becton's drug test has been flagged at the Combine. Multiple NFL draft prospects had their drug tests flagged at this year's Combine, including Louisville offensive tackle Mekhi Becton, according to the NFL Network's Ian Rappaport. Rappaport reports that Becton had no failed tests in college. Under the league's new collective bargaining agreement, Becton will now be moved into Stage 1 of the NFL's intervention program for up to 60 days. If he has no further issues or flagged tests during that time, he will thereafter assume the same status as players who have never been referred to the intervention program, per Rappaport. Becton was a first-team All-ACC selection in 2019, expected to be a first-round pick in the 2020 draft. They projected him going 11 to the Jets. But Becton's name appeared in headlines after an anonymous scout offered a criticism with his draft status due to of all reasons, Becton's affinity for cooking. Okay, that was a pointless last column there. But yeah, question marks now around Mekhi Becton. I don't know if the Browns are in the position of luxury to get worried by red flags, or that was probably more of a John Dorsey situation. What would you say our current GM? What is his demeanor? What type of guy do you think he's going to be in the war room? Because John Dorsey was very different. He took a lot of wild swings for home runs.
Yeah. I think you're going to see Andrew Berry probably pretty similar to how you would have seen Sashi Brown a few years ago. They have a lot of similarities. Your Ivy Leaguer, young, kind of like, highly respected, but maybe very unproven type of leader for your franchise. I think that look, ultimately, you can make the picks however you want to make them. It's a matter of what the players do on the field. So I think that you're going to have some hits and you're going to have some misses. We've had 8 different general managers in the last 15 years take swings on the most important position in professional sports, which is quarterback. And I guess you hope that Dorsey was the one who finally got it right, but then Baker obviously takes a step back last year. So it all has to do with Mayfield. It really, everyone else, these are all supplemental pieces. We have supplemental pieces in place, but ultimately it's about providing Baker Mayfield with the best tools that he needs to be successful. So with that said, you could take a left tackle at number 10. I think that Isaiah Simmons, who is a jack of all trades safety / linebacker out of Clemson, is a defensive possibility as far as being just an absolute terror out on the field. He could be our Troy Polamalu for the next 10 years.
Wouldn't it be great to have a monster linebacker back there like Clay Matthews? Wouldn't it be? I mean, Brandon, over the past 30 years, what type of middle linebacker play have we had? I mean, where have our studs come from? We've had flashes of decent play or good play, occasionally great play. But it seems like the linebacker position has not been a strength of ours for quite a few decades. Are there a few names that jump out at you as some of the best ones we used to have? And good.
There aren't really any big-time linebackers. That I'm telling you that Isaiah Simmons is a guy that is the defensive prospect that there's certainly a chance he could end up getting taken in the top 3. But outside of Chase Young at defensive end, I think he is the best defensive prospect in the draft and the one who could help us most on that side of the ball. There's a possibility that Jeff Okudah from Ohio State, the corner from Ohio State, he's projected to go as high as number 3. But people are going to be taking some swings at some quarterbacks, and people are going to be moving around to pick up some quarterbacks, and there's a possibility that he's there at number 10. I think you can never have too many corners, and certainly we know with both Denzel Ward and Greedy Williams being out for 4 games last year, if we could have another top flight corner to add to that room, that would never be that wouldn't be a bad thing either. So I could certainly see us going that route as well. I'd love to see Okudah fall to us at number 10. But everything points to them picking one of those 4 left tackles. And if you had to ask me today, if there's no telling which of those 4 is going to be available. So it's very difficult to make a true decision. But just saying that all 4 of them were available, which they are not going to be, which one would I take personally? I would probably go with experience in a big-time conference with a lot of starts under his belt, and that's Andrew Thomas from the University of Georgia. So,
well, let me tell you this, CBS Sports here, this has us picking at number 4. This shows us trading up. This says Cleveland is going to trade up. Everyone expects the Browns to draft an offensive tackle. But with a roster that's closer to contention than expected if Baker Mayfield returns to his rookie form, they instead make a bold move to trade up for my second highest grade non-quarterback in the class. The Browns have an even bigger need at inside linebacker than at offensive tackle, believe it or not. But Simmons will play all over the defense, safety, slot, even off the edge at times, and provide a playmaking ability that could prove as the final piece to jolt an already talented defense over the top. So this has us jumping up to get Isaiah Simmons out of Clemson at the number 4 pick. Obviously, it's a different scenario for drafting at number 10. Some of the comments coming in here, it says Jesse Nash says, if Simmons is there, you take him. Sal says, I would hope that Barry would take Andrew Thomas. Joe Thomas was the last left tackle he took. I'm superstitious. I like that. That's pretty good. Sal also says, yes, get him and trade back and get a left tackle and Peter from the Eagles. So, I mean, we have a few positions we could go after. I don't know, Brandon, what do you think the Browns are going to be movers in this draft, or do you think they're just going to sit and let the picks come to them?
I think that it is more likely that they could move back a couple of spots and still get one of those left tackles, because you might have some teams that are possibly looking to say, no one's really talking about these receivers, but say we're at number 10 and no receivers have gone yet. Well, we don't need a receiver, but say a team wants to hop up a couple of spots to get the highest rated receiver on their board. I think it's more likely that we could end up moving back a few spots than up a few spots and still manage to get the left tackle or one of the left tackles. But frankly, I would probably say it is most likely that we just stand pat and make a selection at number 10.
Okay, and so do you want to talk about any players that you're hoping are going to slide to us in the second, third round and stuff, or do you want to kind of talk about some of the first 5 players off the board, how you see it going? Where do you want to take it as we start winding things down here?
I've always felt that it's kind of like a fruitless endeavor to try to mock draft who a team is going to take in rounds 2, 3, 4. I think that generally speaking, you are looking for a certain type of player or a certain position group. And I think that assuming that left tackle is their priority in round 1, then I think that safety has to be a priority in rounds 2 and 3. Some names that are being brought up in the mock draft circles are Jeremy Chin, a small school guy out of Southern Illinois, as a matter of fact. Compare him to a TJ Ward. He's a big hitter, more likely to be an in-the-box type of safety rather than a free safety. Ashton Davis is, I believe I'm getting his name. I'm saying all this right off the top of my head. I guess I could look at my lists here, but Ashton Davis is a player from Cal that is a former track star that ended up walking on to the football team, and so he's going to be more of that center fielder, free safety. That there's some teams looking at him in the second and third round. So there's a couple of names at safety. I know that there's a guy, you talk about linebackers, the Wisconsin linebacker, I think his name is Braun, which is, always a good name for a linebacker. I think I have that right. He is someone who he actually just had like some sort of test flagged or something like that. But he is he's a first round talent that could possibly fall because of some of this unease about maybe what his like drug tests are showing. Zach Baun, Baun, B-A-U-N. So, Baun. And Chris Orr is another linebacker for Wisconsin. So they could kind of come right in and be like a guy that takes over for Joe Schobert, who obviously was a pretty solid linebacker for us for a few years, even if he wasn't necessarily like tremendous. And frankly, I mean, Joe Schobert was a 4th round draft pick when we drafted him. So to say that he wasn't a successful player for us, I mean, we picked him in the 4th round. He was supposed to be a special teamer.
Yeah, so he overachieved. He overshot.
Yeah.
And he had the chance to do that. And that is unfortunate. But like really quick is instead of going further into the draft, like you said, it's pointless. Who are we going to take in the 6th round, Brandon? Who the heck knows who's available? Can we just maybe wrap this up on who have we lost? Like, because you're talking about Schobert. I'm reading here that New Orleans Saints quarterback Taysom Hill, Browns running back Kareem Hunt, and San Fran running back Mac Breida won't be switching teams. So they're all staying on as the trade deadline has passed. Or the whatever the deadline is. What is this? For long-term extensions, whatever this is called. So Kareem Hunt is coming back, but who did we lose? Because it's important when we go into a draft to look at what we think we have versus what the pantry really looks like now that we've been, taking things out of it. So, like you said, Joe Schobert is gone. Where did he go?
The Jaguars.
Okay, so he's gone. He got a pretty good deal, right? Decent deal?
Yeah. He got a good contract for himself, and the Jaguars are a team that don't have to pay. They're shedding salary for a lot of guys right now. So for them to absorb or to have to pay him wasn't a big deal for them. So we lost him. We've lost Demarius Randall,
right?
Who went to the Raiders. So that's why I'm saying there's a hole in safety. Who else did we lose?
Demarius Randall. Yeah, I mean, Demarius Randall. It was really great. It was one of these like in Dorsey we trust felt so good for a while. When Baker was great.
Yeah.
When Demarius Randall for DeShone Kizer, it's like this guy, everything he touches turns to gold, and it's like, after a year, the gold layer has worn off, and it's like, oh, that was just gold plated. Ah, crap, because the Demarius Randall thing ended really weird with insubordination and suspensions, and it was just strange. But he's gone.
Ironically, you mentioned DeShone Kizer. The irony there is that Dorsey did not pick DeShone Kizer. He traded DeShone Kizer for Demarius Randall.
Yeah,
He traded DeShone Kizer to the Green Bay Packers for Demarius Randall.
And that's when we were all saying he's a genius. I can't believe he gave away nothing for look at how great Demarius Randall's performing, and he did for a minute until he got really weird and quirky, just like Beckham. So it's hard to Baker Mayfield. We love him, but he's really kind of immature. He's always in the headlines for the wrong reasons, and it's becoming a pattern. And it's like, damn, is this what Dorsey's about? I thought Dorsey was about leading us back to the promised land. Well, his ass got shipped out of town. He got canned. Something about him wasn't working the right way. The ownership group didn't want him around. So, I mean, we've shifted gears. So, like, the team that we have now is very different than the team that John Dorsey, shook the world up and made all these perfect decisions. And then you got an injured Denzel Ward. You got Baker being Baker and regressing. Demarius Randall, he's out of town now, and it's a lot like a lot of things in life. You can see it more clearly in the rearview mirror. When you're in the middle of it, it's a little different. Brian May in the group is saying that we do need a receiver, and I did see that somebody was saying we might take that CD, take that wide receiver out of Oklahoma, bringing him in. Let's see. World Today. Need meaning that we have real good talent, but what would the Pats do? They would draft receiver, be like the Pats. That's actually interesting. Sal is saying in the group, they say Atlanta, Denver, and Vegas want to move up, so those might be partners with us. Jesse's saying, how about Winfield Jr.? Sal is saying, what about the LSU safety Grant Delpit? So, a lot of opinions this time of year. And I guess now that we're kind of resetting the season, resetting the players on our team, getting rid of Schobert, getting rid of Demarius Randall and others, are we even going to have a season, Brandon? That's probably a good place to end this show because baseball hasn't started. And that's a whole separate subject. I'm going to do a show with Blake Wally coming up about the future of sports because, I feel like when the quarantine went down, if everybody would have went into extreme quarantine, I'm talking the playoff teams for NHL, for the NBA, maybe not all the players, but the playoff teams. Go into your 14-day quarantine and then play in an empty arena, but keep the playoffs going. we're over a month in here, but now people are really starting to say, Mayor Eric Garcetti of Los Angeles said there will be no fans at sporting events through 2021. They're already projecting out to 2021. Are we even going to have a season, Brandon, with the COVID-19 crap going on?
I mean, everything that I think that it's hard to say. I think to assume that it's going to look the way that we're accustomed to seeing, I think is probably pretty naive. I don't think it's going to be the same as what we're expecting. I think that the whole idea of them not having fans in the stands is more likely. The NFL, their business model is built much more on television revenue than, say, like the college football model, which, Ohio State does get, their money from their ticket sales basically supports their entire athletic department. And so it's going to be very difficult for major college football to be able to be played without fans. But for the NFL, the most lucrative part of their of their business comes from their television deals with CBS and Fox. So
and keep in mind, we're talking about
signs in the stands.
Yeah, I'm sorry not to interrupt, but I want to make this point too because it's interesting you bring it up. This is also come at a time where we're talking about California and Gavin Newsom and Mayor Eric Garcetti in Los Angeles. California just said that they're going to allow NCAA players to get paid. I mean, you talk about a double knockout punch for the NCAA. I mean, The Rock with his show Ballers. It's this whole last season or 2 seasons ago, however long it is now. It's all about taking down the NCAA. So if you starve them of revenue and you allow players to start getting paid, and that's going to have a ripple effect across the entire collegiate marketplace. Why would you go play at Georgia if you could go make money at USC? I mean, it's a complete game changer. I mean, that's a whole other subject in itself with the NCAA, but it's interesting you bring it up. I'll have to think a little bit more about that. But, I mean, do you see the NHL or the NBA coming back for playoff time? Do you see NASCAR and golf starting up? I don't see why these aren't already happening with no fans in the stands. You keep your distance with your golfers, with your race car drivers. Sell your advertising revenue for Chevrolet, Coca-Cola, Ford, and Budweiser. I mean, it's the same dollars coming in, but all these events are just gone. I mean, yeah. I'm starting to get concerned because there's no reason why a 14-day quarantine shouldn't have already brought us back to the NBA playoffs right now, which makes me even more nervous about the Cleveland Browns and their season coming up. Of course, in typical Cleveland Browns fashion, maybe this was the year we were set to win it all, like 94 Indians, except there's a strike or there's no freaking season. How Cleveland would that be? You get Baker in his prime and you squander it. So I don't know, man. I mean, if you put on your crystal, you put on your fortune teller outfit, you think we're going to have NFL and it's just going to be nobody in the stands or one family per row? Like, what does it look like? If you were guessing,
I think it's going to be nobody in the stands, and I think that we would, rather than them trying to say, okay, at mid-season we'll try to start back up with fans again and stuff. I think that this season would most likely be played in empty stadiums, and I've heard different things about having like the entire league sequestered in hotels and all playing in one area. The talk about you say you're going to be talking about baseball all playing in Arizona in spring training areas and stuff like that. And then, there's ways to do it. But yeah, I think that it's probably likely that you're going to be looking at empty stadiums, and they're just going to have to find a way to be more creative with their advertising revenue to try to mitigate some of that financial loss from ticket sales.
I mean, I was reading an article today saying that I think it was on the 15th that they're going to stop paying the NBA players on the 15th. if there's no if there's no revenue coming in, like eventually these billionaire team owners and the millionaire players, they're going to do whatever it takes to make something because they're squandering their prime. I mean, geez, talk about someone like LeBron. You're at your peak in your prime. This is the year you have Anthony Davis on your team. You can't even play. I just sequester them. Play all the baseball games out in Arizona. Why not? It's just a field. It's just a diamond. Make sure nobody comes in or goes unless you've already gone through your 14-day quarantine. You wear your little wristband. Nobody else comes in, and you're still playing your games because I think sports brings us together. Obviously, it'll divide us if you live in Pittsburgh, and we have our rivalries and stuff. But there's something pure about competition. There's something American about getting on an even playing field and battling it out. And may the best team win. May the most valuable superstar rise to the occasion and do unprecedented things. I mean, these are the little types of things that keep a nation connected. There's supposed to be some sort of common thread that keeps us together as a community, as a nation. But now you have, kids are scared to play with other kids on the street, and you don't know if you should be connecting or disconnecting or looking at everyone like they're an infected piece of virus and everyone's toxic. And it's a strange time. I just feel like if baseball was being played, the NHL playoffs were quarantined, and they're at least playing. Do it in smaller ice arenas, college venues. Doesn't matter. Just give them a rink, give them a field, give them a football field. You don't need the fans for now. You need the game. There's no reason why golf should be postponed. Play golf.
Yeah.
Who cares? You're
golf
missing
will
out
come
on.
Back first.
What's that?
Golf will come back first. I think that's the one that's the easiest to do. You get rid of caddies. You have them all driving carts. And, I think that'll probably be the first one to come back. And,
NASCAR, tennis.
And as far as looking how we look at each other, the thing is that I've always looked at you as an infected piece of virus. So, it's really been pretty similar for me in terms of my dealings with you, Mr. Engelman.
Well played, Mr. Odell. I appreciate that sarcasm. That was well done. Right there, folks, that is the type of segue that you could only expect from a true professional. Brandon, I know we've exceeded our rough 30-minute timeline here with about 44 and a half minutes, so I do appreciate the extra time today. I appreciate all the people in the sports groups leaving our comments in the Unhappy Hour and in Strictly Browns. I certainly appreciate it. Final comment here from Sal. He says, I watched WrestleMania with empty arena, and it was terribly entertaining, to say the least. Okay, I just give me the games. I don't need the roar of the stands. Just give me the stat line in the newspaper at the end of it. I want to click and see who went 3 for 3 with 4 RBIs. Let's get back to playing fantasy baseball. Some sort of normality. This month has sucked. It's been weird. I know we're gonna bounce back. We're gonna be fine. But man, we just I know sports are not important at this moment, but we can do sports without fans and do both things at once. We can still prioritize our medical care professionals, try to flatten the curve. We're all kind of in this, but bring us our sports back. Our sports back. Yeah. Quarantine the players and just get on the field, get on the rink, get in the stadium, and just battle because it's fun. We got nothing else to do. We're running out of stuff to watch on Netflix.
Well, that is certainly well spoken. I will leave you with this. Just think about, Arthur Blank got in trouble for artificially pumping in crowd noise to the Falcons stadium a few years ago. Maybe we need to ask him for the phone number for his sound guy. He can, throw some crowd noise into each empty stadium and at least maybe give the players an artificial sense of fandom that way. So,
Brandon, I do really like that. I think it could be like a laugh track from like Three's Company or from Friends. It's like all this laughter and the oohs and the ahs and the boos and the roar of the crowd and the confusion. That could be fun, or it could be awful, or it could be terribly entertaining.
Even like for the home viewer, it might make it a little bit more normal. So, anyway, there's a lot of stuff. Trust me, the people that are paid a lot more money than you or I to make these decisions are making these decisions as we speak, and they are working very, very hard to try to come up with a product that will be a satisfying experience, and we'll see what the product on Thursday with the NFL draft looks like, because the NFL has the first crack at trying to bring some sort of sense of newness to the sports landscape. So we'll see how it looks.
This was supposed to be a
Brian,
big.
This
This was supposed to be a big Las Vegas party. Big Las Vegas party for the NFL draft. That's on hold for sure, but I agree with you, buddy. Just get it rolling. Keep it, from cell phones and basements and war rooms and 6 feet apart. Who cares? Just give us the NFL draft. It's just crazy that it's this Thursday already. It feels like the past month has taken a year to happen. There's been a lot packed in here. And I agree. Maybe this is the domino we need to start clicking normality back. On Thursday, we can say, all right, the economy wasn't risen, sports weren't risen yet again on Easter. Maybe it took the NFL draft. That was the line in the sand where everything started turning back toward a little bit of normalcy. Fingers crossed. Who knows? None of us really know. We're all kind of just guessing based on the best data we have available. But man, I appreciate you reaching out and saying, hey, we need to do this show, because I've been distracting myself with yard work and tasks, meditative things, clearing undergrowth and brush and bonfires and fixing projects and fencing and all sorts of stuff. I haven't really been focusing on delivering the shows and the content that's consistent stuff from the Unhappy Hour and Strictly Browns that you've been used to. So this is a little nudge in the right direction to set up the lighting, set up the studio a little bit, probably do a green screen back here, but it feels good to be doing this. This is natural. This is what I've been born to do. And like my cousin said, maybe this whole COVID thing was divine appointment for all of us to kind of reassess how we're spending our days and our lives. The entire world has sabbatical at the same time. This has maybe never happened in recorded history before. So maybe something good could come out of this. Maybe something good could happen if we take this time and refocus our energies on what we think is important. And this was important for me today. So Brandon, thank you for joining me. I appreciate you. And how about this, man? How about we do a post-draft show to discuss who the Browns got and how the rest of things shook out?
Sounds great.
All right, man. Send my love to your family, as always, and I will talk to you in a few.
Same your way. Talk to you soon. Bye.
Thanks, man.
The Unhappy Hour on TheNewAmericanMedia.com.